I get panic attacks, and then my blood pressure raises, and my heart races, and then 1 minute I'm manic, and 1 minute I'm angry, or I'm sorry the way that I look.
How does a cheerful child performer who once danced across television screens become the center of one of the most heartbreaking stories in modern pop culture? For millions of fans who grew up in the early 2000s, Aaron Carter was more than just a singer. He was a symbol of youthful fun, the kind of pop star who seemed permanently frozen in a moment of carefree childhood. His music played at birthday parties, school dances, and in bedrooms where posters of him covered the walls. But behind the upbeat songs and bright smile was a life that slowly became tangled in fame, family conflict, and personal struggles that would eventually overshadow his early success. Aaron's journey into the spotlight began long before most kids his age had even figured out what they wanted to be when they grew up. Born into a family already connected to the entertainment world, Aaron grew up watching his older brother, Nick Carter, rise to international fame as a member of the legendary pop group Backstreet Boys. The group was dominating charts across the world in the late 1990s, performing to massive crowds and building a fan base that stretched across continents. For a young Aaron, this world of flashing lights, screaming fans, and global tours wasn't something distant. It was something he saw up close. Instead of simply watching from the sidelines, Aaron quickly found himself stepping into the same spotlight. At only 9 years old, he was already performing in front of large audiences. In fact, he began opening for the Backstreet Boys on tour, giving him a rare introduction to the world of pop stardom at an age when most children were still worried about homework and playground friendships. Standing on those stages, Aaron seemed completely at home. He had the confidence, the charm, and the natural stage presence that instantly connected with young audiences. By 1997, his budding career reached its first major milestone when he signed his first recording contract. Soon after, he released his debut album, which quickly gained traction among young listeners. Selling over 1 million copies, the record turned Aaron into a recognizable face in pop music. For someone so young, the success was almost unbelievable. Industry insiders began to see him not just as the little brother of a famous singer, but as a rising star in his own right. But it was the start of the new millennium that truly launched Aaron Carter into global stardom. In 2000, he released the album Aaron's Party, Come Get It, a record that perfectly captured the playful energy of early 2000s pop culture. The album quickly became a sensation among young fans. Songs like I Want Candy and That's How I Beat Shaq became catchy anthems that kids across the world couldn't stop singing. With their upbeat rhythms and humorous lyrics, the songs reflected the innocence and excitement of childhood. Suddenly, Aaron Carter was everywhere. His face appeared on magazine covers, television interviews, and posters hanging in the rooms of countless fans. His concerts were filled with screaming teenagers, and his music videos played constantly on television. In many ways, he had become the ultimate teen idol of his generation. Yet Aaron's rise wasn't limited to music. His popularity soon spilled over into television as well. He made guest appearances on several popular shows, including the beloved Disney Channel series Lizzie McGuire. For fans, one moment from that show became unforgettable. The famous mistletoe kiss scene that instantly turned into a pop culture memory for an entire generation. He also appeared in other television programs like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, further expanding his reach beyond the music world. At the same time, Aaron's personal life began attracting attention from the media. As a teenage celebrity surrounded by other young stars, his friendships and relationships quickly became headline news. His rumored romances with actresses like Hilary Duff and Lindsay Lohan placed him firmly in the center of young Hollywood culture. Fans followed every detail of these relationships, while tabloids eagerly reported on the teenage drama that surrounded them. From the outside, Aaron Carter's life seemed almost perfect. He had fame, success, and a fan base that adored him. He was living a dream that many young performers could only imagine. But what fans didn't see was the growing pressure that came with achieving such enormous success at such a young age. Childhood fame can be intoxicating, but it can also be incredibly overwhelming. While other kids were figuring out who they were and building normal lives, Aaron was navigating a world filled with managers, contracts, media attention, and relentless expectations. Every move he made was watched, every decision scrutinized, and as the years passed, the difference between the cheerful pop star on stage and the young man behind the scenes slowly began to grow. The truth was that beneath the bright lights of fame, the seeds of future struggles were already quietly taking root. Family tensions, financial complications, and the emotional strain of growing up in the spotlight would all begin to shape Aaron's life in ways that few fans could have imagined at the height of his success. For a while, though, none of that seemed visible. To the world, Aaron Carter remained the smiling pop star whose songs filled childhood memories. But the reality of his life was becoming far more complicated than the simple, carefree image the public had come to know. And as the years moved forward, the story of Aaron Carter would slowly transform from a tale of early success into something far more tragic. As the early 2000s unfolded, Aaron Carter seemed unstoppable. His name had become synonymous with the kind of energetic pop music that defined a generation of young listeners. Fans who had once discovered him as the cheerful kid opening for the Backstreet Boys were now growing up alongside him, following his career as it expanded beyond music and into television, movies, and live performances around the world. After the huge success of Aaron's Party Come Get It, Aaron continued releasing new music that kept him firmly planted in pop culture. His next album, Oh Aaron, arrived in 2001 and quickly went platinum. For many fans, the album cover alone became instantly recognizable. Aaron posing confidently, dressed in bright early 2000s fashion that perfectly reflected the era's youthful style. The songs carried the same upbeat spirit that had made him famous, reinforcing his image as the playful teen idol millions adored. Just 1 year later, he released another earthquake, proving that his popularity had not faded. The album featured the same catchy hooks and energetic performances that fans had come to expect. During this time, Aaron wasn't simply a singer. He was a constant presence in teen magazines, television appearances, and pop culture conversations. His music videos played repeatedly on television channels, and his concerts were packed with young fans who knew every lyric. But Aaron's popularity didn't stop with music. His personality and charm made him a natural fit for television, and producers quickly realized audiences loved seeing him on screen. His earlier appearance on Lizzie McGuire had already cemented him as a favorite among younger viewers. But his career continued expanding with guest roles in shows like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Seventh Heaven. These appearances helped transform Aaron into something more than just a singer. He became a recognizable celebrity personality, someone who could move between music, television, and public appearances with ease. His smile, his youthful energy, and his ability to connect with fans made him seem like the perfect teen star. But as time moved forward, the music industry began changing. The bubblegum pop wave that had lifted so many teen idols during the late 1990s and early 2000s slowly started to fade. New musical styles were emerging, and the young audiences who had once been obsessed with pop idols were growing older. For Aaron, this shift created a difficult transition. Like many child stars before him, he was faced with the challenge of growing up in public. The audience that had loved him as a kid was now changing, and the industry that once celebrated him was becoming more unpredictable. Still, Aaron continued searching for ways to stay connected with the spotlight. One of the most visible moments of his later career came in 2009, when he joined the cast of the popular reality competition series Dancing with the Stars. The show had already become a massive television hit, pairing celebrities with professional dancers to compete in elaborate ballroom performances each week. For Aaron, the opportunity seemed like a chance to reintroduce himself to audiences who might not have followed his music career as closely anymore. Week after week, he appeared on stage performing complex dance routines, showing a side of himself many fans had never seen before. His performances were energetic and determined, and he quickly proved he was more than capable of handling the intense training required for the competition. For a brief moment, it looked like Aaron Carter might be experiencing a new chapter of success. His appearance on the show reminded audiences of the charisma that had once made him such a beloved performer. Viewers who remembered him from their childhoods were suddenly seeing him again, older but still recognizable as the same energetic entertainer. But behind the scenes, Aaron's life was becoming far more complicated. Even as he worked to revive his career, personal struggles were quietly beginning to surface. The pressure of growing up in the spotlight had never truly disappeared. Instead, it had evolved into something more complicated. A mixture of financial problems, family conflicts, and emotional challenges that were becoming harder to hide. Around this time, stories about tensions within the Carter family began attracting media attention. The once tightly connected family that had produced two major pop stars was now dealing with disagreements that were becoming increasingly public. Aaron later accused his mother, Jane Carter, of mishandling money he had earned as a child performer, allegations that sparked controversy and debate. Financial disputes like these are not uncommon among former child stars. When millions of dollars are earned before a performer even becomes an adult, questions about who controlled that money often emerge later. For Aaron, those questions created lasting resentment and complicated his relationships with those closest to him. At the same time, the fame that had once felt exciting was starting to feel exhausting. The entertainment industry is known for building young stars up quickly, but it can also abandon them just as fast when trends change. For someone who had spent his entire childhood in the public eye, stepping away from that spotlight was never easy. Aaron tried to continue performing, releasing new music, and making public appearances whenever possible. But the road ahead was becoming increasingly uncertain. While some fans remained loyal, the industry that once celebrated him had moved on to new stars. And with the fading of his early fame came something even more difficult to face: the growing presence of personal struggles that were beginning to shape the next chapter of his life. Legal issues, mental health challenges, and substance use would soon become part of Aaron Carter's story, transforming the narrative from one of youthful pop stardom into something far darker and more complicated. The cheerful boy who once danced across television screens was now entering a period of life filled with turbulence, and the troubles that lay ahead would test him in ways no one, including his fans, could have predicted. By the late 2000s, the bright and carefree image that once defined Aaron Carter was beginning to fade. The same young star who had once dominated teen pop charts and charmed audiences with his television appearances was now facing a far more complicated reality. Fame had given him incredible opportunities, but it had also exposed him to pressures few people his age were prepared to handle. For many former child stars, the transition into adulthood can be painfully difficult. The spotlight that once celebrated their talent often becomes unforgiving as they grow older. Expectations change, the public becomes more critical, and personal mistakes are no longer overlooked with the same kindness once given to youthful performers. Aaron was now experiencing that reality firsthand. By the time he reached his 20s, troubling headlines began to replace the glowing stories that once filled entertainment magazines. Instead of celebrating new music releases or television appearances, news outlets were increasingly reporting on his personal struggles. Legal issues, substance use, and family conflicts were beginning to dominate the narrative surrounding his life. One of the earliest public incidents occurred in 2008, when Aaron was pulled over by police in Texas for speeding. During the traffic stop, officers reportedly discovered more than 2 ounces of marijuana in his vehicle. The arrest quickly became public news, marking one of the first major legal controversies connected to his name. At the time, Aaron's management released statements attempting to minimize the situation, explaining that he had been traveling to Florida with his dogs and was simply trying to make the long drive as quickly as possible. But for fans who had grown up watching him as a cheerful child star, the incident was unsettling. It was a reminder that the young performer they remembered was now navigating adult problems in a very public way. Unfortunately, this would not be the last time Aaron found himself facing legal trouble. Nearly a decade later, in 2017, he was arrested again, this time in Georgia. The charges included driving under the influence, along with possession of a small amount of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. The arrest quickly made national headlines, especially because Aaron's appearance during the incident raised concerns among fans, who noticed he looked drastically thinner than in previous years. Aaron publicly denied being intoxicated and insisted that he had been unfairly targeted because of his fame. He later explained that a medical condition prevented him from driving long distances, and that the misunderstanding had escalated unnecessarily. But regardless of his explanation, the incident only added to growing concerns about his well-being. Behind the legal issues, something deeper was unfolding. During interviews and public appearances, Aaron began speaking openly about his mental health struggles. In a series of emotional revelations, he shared that doctors had diagnosed him with several conditions, including schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, previously referred to as manic depression, and severe anxiety. These admissions shocked many fans who had always associated Aaron with youthful joy and carefree pop music. Suddenly, the reality of his inner battles became impossible to ignore. Mental health challenges are difficult for anyone to manage, but facing them under the constant scrutiny of the public eye can make the situation even more overwhelming. Aaron also revealed that substance abuse had played a significant role in his struggles. One of the most disturbing admissions involved inhalant abuse, a dangerous form of substance use that involves inhaling chemicals from products like compressed air cans. The practice can cause immediate damage to the brain and nervous system, making it one of the most dangerous forms of addiction. Aaron admitted that he had first experimented with inhalants when he was still very young. Over time, the habit became increasingly difficult to break. Even as he attempted to seek treatment and recovery, the addiction continued to resurface. Throughout the 2010s, Aaron entered rehabilitation facilities multiple times in an effort to regain control of his life. Reports indicated that he sought treatment in 2011, again in 2017, and once more in 2022. Each attempt represented a genuine effort to overcome the personal demons that had been haunting him for years. During one particularly candid moment on social media in 2017, Aaron wrote a message that revealed both his frustration and determination. He told fans, "Only I can change my life. No one can do it for me." The statement reflected a painful truth about addiction and recovery, that while support from others can help, the battle ultimately takes place within the individual. But even as he tried to heal, the pressures surrounding him continued to grow. Family tensions, which had been simmering for years, were now becoming increasingly public. The Carter family had once been known for producing 2 major pop stars, Aaron and his older brother, Nick Carter, of the Backstreet Boys. Yet behind the scenes, relationships between the siblings were becoming deeply strained. In 2019, the situation escalated dramatically when Aaron's twin sister Angel and his brother Nick both filed restraining orders against him. The legal filings cited disturbing behavior and alleged threats that had deeply frightened family members. The news shocked fans around the world. For years, The Carter siblings had appeared to share a close bond. Now, those relationships were unraveling in a very public and painful way. Nick Carter later revealed that Aaron had allegedly expressed thoughts about harming Nick's pregnant wife and unborn child. Claims that painted a deeply troubling picture of Aaron's emotional state at the time. Angel Carter also spoke about fearing for the safety of her own family, leading her to seek legal protection. Aaron denied many of these accusations and responded with anger on social media, accusing his brother of wrongdoing and insisting that the situation had been misunderstood. The public exchange of accusations created a painful spectacle that exposed just how fractured the Carter family had become. As if the emotional strain wasn't already overwhelming, Aaron was also dealing with devastating personal losses. In 2012, his sister Leslie Carter died from what was reported to be an apparent overdose. Her death shook the entire family and left Aaron struggling with grief that he openly admitted was difficult to process. 5 years later, another tragedy struck when his father passed away in 2017. Losing two close family members in such a short period of time added even more emotional weight to Aaron's already fragile state of mind. Grief, addiction, mental health struggles, and family conflict were now colliding all at once. The financial problems that followed only made matters worse. In 2013, Aaron filed for bankruptcy, revealing debts totaling more than $3 million. A significant portion of the debt came from unpaid taxes related to the millions he had earned as a child star. The situation highlighted one of the darker realities of early fame. While Aaron had once earned enormous sums of money during his teenage years, poor financial management and complicated family dynamics left him facing serious financial consequences as an adult. Despite everything he was facing, legal trouble, addiction, mental illness, family conflict, and financial hardship, Aaron continued trying to rebuild his life. He kept performing, recording new music, and staying connected with fans through social media. But the road forward was becoming increasingly uncertain. The joyful pop star who once filled concert arenas with screaming fans was now fighting a much more private battle, one that would prove far more difficult than any performance on stage. And tragically, the struggles that defined these years would eventually lead to one of the most heartbreaking endings in modern pop culture history. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of Aaron Carter's story was how close he came to turning everything around. In the months leading up to his death, Aaron had been talking about rebuilding his life. He had been making plans to focus on his music again, reconnect with fans, and most importantly, become the kind of father his young son could look up to. Fatherhood had changed something inside him. For the first time in years, Aaron spoke about responsibility and stability with a sincerity that surprised even the people who had known him the longest. He talked about wanting to break the cycle of chaos that had followed him since childhood. He wanted his son to grow up in a life that looked nothing like the one he had experienced. And for a brief moment, it seemed like that dream might actually happen. Those who spent time with Aaron during this period said there were glimpses of the person he could have been if life had unfolded differently. He was calmer in some moments, reflective in others. He spoke openly about the mistakes he had made and the battles he had fought. There was no longer the same defensive energy that had once surrounded him. Instead, there was exhaustion, the kind that comes from years of fighting invisible battles. Aaron knew that the road ahead would not be easy. Rebuilding a life after so much public turmoil rarely is. But he believed he could do it. He believed he still had time. Yet the weight of everything he had been through never truly disappeared. The pressures of fame, the family conflicts that had never fully healed, the endless scrutiny from strangers online, all of it remained part of his daily reality. For someone who had grown up in the spotlight, privacy was almost impossible to find. Every mistake became a headline. Every struggle became a spectacle. And even when Aaron tried to explain what he was going through, it often felt like no one was truly listening. The internet had already decided who he was. When news of his death broke, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Fans who had grown up listening to his music were stunned. Many remembered the bright, energetic kid who had once filled arenas with excitement and laughter. For them, Aaron Carter was part of their childhood memories, a symbol of a simpler time when pop music was colorful and carefree. Seeing how his life had ended forced many people to reflect on how quickly fame can turn from a dream into something far more complicated. In the days that followed, tributes poured in from across the entertainment world. Fellow musicians, actors, and performers shared their memories of Aaron. Not the controversial headlines, but the person they had known behind them. They spoke about his kindness, his sense of humor, and the way he always tried to keep going, even when things felt impossible. Many admitted they had worried about him for years. Some had tried to help. Others simply wished they had done more. His story also reignited conversations about the darker side of child stardom. Aaron Carter had been famous long before he was old enough to understand what fame truly meant. As a child performer, he had been thrown into a world of relentless pressure, constant travel, and intense public attention. Success came quickly, but the emotional cost often remained hidden. Like many young stars before him, Aaron had grown up in an environment where there was little room for normal childhood experiences. The expectations were enormous, and the safety nets were often fragile. People began comparing Aaron's journey to the stories of other young celebrities who had struggled under the same spotlight. It raised uncomfortable questions about how the entertainment industry treats its youngest stars, and what happens when the applause fades. For every success story, there are others who quietly battle the psychological aftermath of growing up famous. Aaron Carter's life became a reminder that fame at a young age can leave scars that last long after the cameras stop rolling. Yet focusing only on the tragedy risks overlooking something important. Despite everything he faced, Aaron Carter never stopped trying to connect with people through music. Even during the most chaotic periods of his life, he continued to release songs, perform for fans, and share pieces of himself through his art. Music had always been his language, the one place where he felt understood. And for the fans who supported him through every high and low, those songs still carry meaning. Today, when people look back at Aaron Carter's legacy, they often see two very different stories. One is the story the world watched unfold in real time, a roller coaster of fame, controversy, and heartbreak. But the other story is quieter. It's the story of a boy who once stood on stage with enormous dreams, believing that music could make the world brighter. That version of Aaron Carter, the one full of hope and excitement, is the one many fans choose to remember. In the end, Aaron Carter's life was far more complicated than the headlines ever suggested. He was a child star trying to grow up under impossible circumstances, a young man searching for stability in a world that rarely slowed down long enough for him to catch his breath. His struggles were real, but so were his talents, his ambitions, and his moments of genuine kindness. And perhaps that is the most heartbreaking part of all. Because behind every public meltdown, every viral headline, and every controversy was someone who had once simply wanted to sing, perform, and make people smile. Aaron Carter's story is not just about fame or tragedy. It's about the fragile line between childhood dreams and adult realities, and how difficult it can be to find your way back once that line begins to blur. For many fans, the memory of Aaron Carter will always return to those early days, the bright lights, the energetic performances, and the unmistakable voice of a kid who believed the stage was where he belonged. That image, frozen in time, stands in stark contrast to the struggles that followed. But maybe the most meaningful way to remember him is to hold both truths at once, the joy he once brought to millions of fans and the painful lessons his life left behind. Because Aaron Carter's story, in the end, is not just about a fallen star. It's a reminder of how fragile fame can be, and how deeply human the people behind it really are.